Cool. So, who am I? I've been told by multiple people that a lot of people think this slide that every tech talk kind of has in it is not the most useful. So I'm just going to be quick about it. People are like, get to the meat of the presentation. And so I'm husband and father of 5 under 8 currently. It's, yeah, craziness. But I've spent 10 years, a decade in hospitality in Nashville, in restaurant management, both freestanding and hotel attached, before career changing into engineering, into web development. And with that, I started with the free code camp curriculum. I latched onto that, was self-teaching off and on for 2 years, a little over 2 years. Still go through parts of the free code camp curriculum. I think I got another certificate, in the past 6 months, keeping up with my skills. And then I was laid off from a AGM position at a restaurant and went through Flatiron School's online software engineering program, certificate program. And then after that, got my first role, and it's been over 3 years now since that first role. It was August of 2017. So currently a senior software development engineer at Evidence Care. Evidence Care is a decision support tool for providers being doctors, nurses, anyone who kind of is employed by a healthcare system that helps improve care and reduce costs in a way that's meaningful for patients, providers, payers, and healthcare institutions. My current responsibilities include infrastructure, orchestration, resiliency, CI/CD, the monorepo that houses all of our front-end applications, and writing React code in TypeScript. So everything that we do currently is in TypeScript, so full stack JavaScript shop. So I'm just going to dive into it. So I'm going to rush through these online presence tips. I just want to kind of throw them out there into the ether. I want to get to the good stuff, the live coding of something, and kind of discuss things as we go through that time. If you don't catch all of these things or get them all written down, I am recording and we'll get it posted and share links and such. So you can come back and reference this. Although I think a lot of this stuff is probably, you can probably find out there on the interwebs. So once again, as I stated earlier, this is stuff that is my opinion. I'm not a master job seeker. Thankfully, I haven't had to vet all of these things through tons and tons of long-term job seeking A/B testing type stuff. But it is stuff that I've picked up on and implemented it and found successful in my own job searches, as well as sourcing things from Flatiron School's career services, which has placed thousands of people from boot camps into jobs. So they have a lot of that kind of A/B testing, what works, what doesn't. So a blend of my own experiences, tips I've gotten from people who are in hiring roles and positions in Nashville, recruiters that I trust, and career services from the boot camp that I went to, all kind of mashed together. So first things first, we'll talk about GitHub. So this is a pretty long list of things, but I'm gonna run through some of them, and also we'll show kind of what it looks like on a GitHub profile here when we get to the live coding part. But a few specific tips on GitHub is to pin projects to the top of your profile. Excuse me. For your projects, have descriptions and include tags. Add a README for every project. Fill out all of your profile information. Commit often. While I know some people say that companies don't look at that, a lot of companies do. So it's kind of one of those things where it could help, it could not help, but it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Have that commit graph showing some consistent activity. Contribute to open source projects. Hacktoberfest is coming up, so that we're already scheduling next month's meetup to be around Hacktoberfest and how to contribute and find projects and do things in that realm of open source. If you fork code, work on it. So if you're copying code to do stuff with it, do something with it. Focus on project structure and organization as best as you can. If people do dig into your code, want it to represent you well. I know a lot of times we just throw code on GitHub and we don't, it's work in progress and such. So really thinking about, the public viewpoint of what GitHub is for you. Also, if there's things that you don't want people to see, but you want to keep, you can make them private, which is a nice feature that's free now. It hasn't always been. Have clean, easy to read code on your GitHub as best as you can. Our code is always getting better and always improving, and we go back and I look at projects that I have there from years ago, and I'm like, oh, I would refactor that now. But you want to present yourself well. Ensure your contributions chart reflects your activity. So that's really thinking about that graph that's on your profile page of contributions, and if you're doing things, making sure that it's seen. So that's really also understanding how that chart is generated. If you're putting commits onto a branch until they're merged into the main branch of that repository, they're not going to show up. So if you're just enforcing a branch, Git branch workflow or Git flow or something on yourself, know that until things get merged and how that works, they won't show up. Write tests. So this is a good challenge for yourself, and for, if you're not writing tests, to maybe slow down on a project and try and write tests for it and learn how to write tests, even if they're just very basic, straightforward. If this function takes in one argument, it spits out an argument times 2 type of tests. I know at least one engineer who got hired specifically because the coding challenge he was given, he wrote tests for. And the hiring manager said, you're the only person that wrote any tests. And that made such a large impression that even though his coding answer to the challenge might not have been the quote unquote best, the fact that testing was a primary concern of his and thought and even included, even if it wasn't a full test suite, but just a few tests, landed him the job. So practice writing tests, and have those in your GitHub projects. Have comments in the code. So well commented code, depending on how you're writing it, what your skill level is, and such. I'm finishing this clean code book, and part of that is kind of the way you write code should describe itself, so it doesn't need comments. But as I said, everybody has different opinions, but I think having comments in your code to kind of explain what things are doing, and some of the common questions can be answered in comments. And then set up your profile level README. This is something that's newer that I literally just did, I think, this week, because I saw it somewhere. I had seen it, but I hadn't done it yet. And that's if you go in GitHub and you create a new repository and you make it your GitHub username, like even a little box will pop up and be like, you found this secret feature. Although it's I guess it's not secret, it's just a different feature. And you can have a README on your profile page. So you have full markdown. If you wanted to, pin more than 6 projects, you could, because you can put links in there. You can do everything you can do with markdown in there. So that's some tips on GitHub, and my thoughts on it. Oh, a couple things. I didn't write myself the best speaker notes this month, and I apologize. But one, sorry if you're looking at the video and you see me looking over here. That's the screen that I have that I'm sharing, and my camera's over here. So apologies for seeing the side of my head so much. And also, any questions along the way, feel free to throw them in the chat, and I will circle around to them. I promise I'll get to them. I don't always see them right away, but I find that the chat is the best place to throw questions as we're working through things, just because it keeps it moving, but also can kind of batch them. If there's anything super pressing that you really want to ask, I'm also not opposed to you just unmuting and saying, hey, what about this? And we can chat about it. But just a couple, I guess, housekeeping items that I forgot about earlier. So that's some thoughts on GitHub. And moving on to LinkedIn. So a few important keys on LinkedIn, sorry. A complete profile matters, and LinkedIn is cool because it has that little profile meter where it's like, hey, you're an all-star, or hey, you need to do more. So it maps out the things that you need to fill in. Keep your LinkedIn photo identifiable and professional. You don't have to spend money on a professional headshot. If you have one, that's cool. But there's tons of blog posts out there about how to take a good headshot with a camera phone and some basic lighting and things. So just have a good solid picture, professional picture. I don't think I have a professional picture probably anymore. I think it's my silly picture that I use, but I've come to the point in my career and professional life where I feel that like that's more representative of who I am. Then I have a pretty nice picture with like a collared shirt and a tie and such, and like that's not as representative of me anymore. So if my sillier picture turns somebody off, it's probably not going to be a good fit, and that's kind of how I view it right now. But I think in general, a good professional identifiable picture is better. And don't use the default headline. Default headline is like it's your position at your most current or most recent thing. So it could be graduate student at a school, or it could be customer service rep at Old Navy. I say that because I've had that job in my history, my job history. So make sure to update that to something that's a little bit more descriptive and more you. Customize your profile URL. LinkedIn allows that, and it just makes it a little bit easier to grok and to view and to remember. LinkedIn is also a great place for SEO. Like I think if you search Seth Alexander, my LinkedIn comes up like second or third. Seth Alexander is also like the director of MIT's investment arm. So there's he gets the top results, I think, his MIT page, for good reason, I'm sure. But LinkedIn gets a lot of link juice, and so if you can get that bumped up, that'll probably be the first thing people find if they ever do Google your name. Check your privacy settings so people can find and view your info. LinkedIn should be a place where you want people to be able to find you, to have to not lock it down too tight. You want those random recruiters to reach out. You want those things to happen. So make sure that you check your settings and that you can be found if people are looking for you. Ensure your contact info is accurate and where you would want people to reach out to you at. So having phone number, email, whatever you feel comfortable putting out there, so that if recruiters do find you, they can contact you. I've had phone calls and emails and all types of things that have been sourced from my LinkedIn contact info. I think, especially now with phone software being better than it has been, the chances of spam getting through are less. But that's also a personal preference on how comfortable you are with putting some of that stuff out there. Sell yourself in your summary. So your summary should be like your sales pitch. And just a reminder that the first 250 characters are above the digital fold. So there's going to be like a read more button. So you have 250 characters to really give that sales pitch of, I've talked to many recruiters who say that LinkedIn, like they hit a LinkedIn profile to decide if they want to reach out or not, and they give it, maybe 15 seconds. And part of it is going to be that headline, and then, that summary. And they're going to try and, catch them. If there are specific positions that you would want to be considered for, make sure that you have keywords in your LinkedIn profile. When people search, they can search by keywords, and it'll be, are the keywords in this person's profile, either in job history or schooling or things. So that's really, you see a lot of, or a good number of people will say like technologies employed, and it's kind of that comma delimited list of JavaScript, TypeScript, React.js, or whatever. And then be active. So many people will say that LinkedIn is the best place to get noticed these days. Instead of writing blog posts, posting articles on LinkedIn. Instead of commenting or connecting with people on Twitter, it's leaving comments on LinkedIn and such. So many people are saying that LinkedIn is the best place these days to really connect and do things like that. Yeah, so that's some thoughts and pointers on LinkedIn. Blogging. I'm a big proponent of blogging, even though I don't do it nearly as much as I should. Writing a good blog post takes time, especially a technical one. You'll find that as you try and write a how-to or something, you find that the steps that you remember working are not what you remember, and you have to kind of figure out how you did something again. But blogging, I think, is awesome. There's I'd say two main platforms. You can always have your own personal blog on your own domain and such. However, if you want to get more visibility, there is dev.to. I probably should put it on the slide. I'll throw it into the chat. Dev.to. And then Medium is the other one. I think most people have heard of Medium by this point. So medium.com are great places to share and gain some exposure for yourself. If you're publishing decent, or even just, I don't want to say bad, but if you're publishing technical posts on Medium, typically some sort of publication will reach out and ask for you to add your stuff to their publication, and you can become an author for, you know, kind of a group publication, and that'll get you more notoriety and exposure. And the reason they do that is because they can essentially get paid off of that stuff if they're generating enough traffic through their site. So it's a great place to get exposure. I have some blog posts that have, you know, tens of thousands of views, which I know my own personal website with the same exact blog on it does not have that many views. But blogging does many things for you. It demonstrates that you know your craft. It demonstrates that you understand and are passionate about your industry. I'm a big proponent that, like, you don't have to be learning all the time, and you don't have to be one of those developers who is, you know, reading coding books after work hours and writing code on the weekends to be good at what you do and actually be great at what you do and to excel in your career. However, thinking about an online presence and kind of the job search realm, blogging does help in the grand scheme of things. Another very important one is you can communicate through writing, and especially right now, as almost all work is remote, that's a very important skill to be able to demonstrate. It's one thing to tell somebody that you can communicate well through written communication and, you know, can you know, relay topics and really show that, but being able to say, well, and look, here's how I explain this thing in this blog post. It shows that you're skilled in writing about the key concepts encompassing your craft. So just another way to show that how well you know something, especially in interviewing processes. You talk a lot about things, but having that reference knowledge to say, like, or to point to that says, like, yeah, I know that, and I wrote a blog post about it. So it helps. Perhaps you can even build an audience. You know, if you can build an audience on a blogging platform, it one, could make you a couple bucks, which would be nice, but two, it suggests and validates that you're a likable person. And in the grand scheme of things, people like to work with people that, you know, are likable and they enjoy working with. I think we might have all, or some of us have heard or known people who are really great at what they do, but nobody likes them and doesn't want to work with them. And it's like, so, like, you could be the best at what you do, but if nobody wants to work with you, it's still going to be very difficult to succeed. If you're going to choose to blog, I would target one blog post per week, and once again, reference quality over quantity. So one post per week is a good cadence to have, a good target to have. I don't think it would be overwhelming. It might be a little bit at first, but I think once you get kind of into a rhythm or feel good about it, you can do that. And if you're struggling for topics, but you're doing, you know, projects and things, just write about the stuff you're working on. And with that, you know, you'll come up with topics. Part of Flatiron School's online program is you have to write five blog posts, technical blog posts. It's part of the requirements for graduation. So, and with that, I learned how to, like, oh, I just did this thing and I struggled through it, but then I figured it out and I succeeded. I can write a blog post about that. And really just thinking about the things that you're actually doing and summarizing what you did and what you learned or how you solved the problem and putting it out there for the world. And don't worry that, you know, someone else might have already written about it. We all learn differently, and the way one person explains something might not click for some people, and the way you explain it might click. So, just the way that you explain the same exact topic that's been explained 100 times might be helpful to a different group of people who just learn it better the way that you explained it. Cool. Portfolio sites. Why I think lots of people are here, because that was the title of the meetup. A few tips, and then I see there's some questions, so I'm going to jump back to the questions, and then we'll live code, see where we get. So with portfolio sites, and you see the link there, I have opinions on this one, because I think everybody has opinions on them. But in my opinion, perfection will paralyze you. You want to get something out there. I think having that representation on the web is more important than trying to make something perfect. You can incrementally improve over time. And it's one of those things that I have personally changed mine multiple times. And you want to get it out there. So if you're sitting there like, oh, I have to keep fixing this, I have to keep fixing this, I have to keep fixing this, and you still don't have that presence out there, it's hindering you more than having something that isn't perfect out there, in my opinion. I still always remember my undergrad PR class. It was like all PR is good PR, even if it's bad PR type of thing. And we talked for an entire class session about it. And I remember that the outcome was, okay, even bad PR is good for you. I can't explain it anymore why, but I know that we definitely reasoned about it. In my opinion, new cool tech will paralyze you. So that's where we'll talk a little bit about, the template. But, wanting to have a portfolio site that, is backed by AWS RDS instances, and goes through CloudFront and is on an S3 bucket and, or an EC2 instance, or, you put it in a container and serve it up with Nginx in a Fargate thing on AWS. It's like, yeah, that's all really cool. But learning all that in that process is also going to, kind of stop you from the end goal, which is having an online presence out there to be found. And then use a template site to build a static site. Use a template to build a static site. I've always said, this was something that I asked the Nashville developer community, and multiple senior engineers and hiring engineers told me that unless, and there is a caveat here, unless you want to be considered a designer, a UI UX person, use a template, because your goal is to have a presence and for it to look good and to kind of say something about yourself. It's not to impress, to wow with like the actual design. You just want to relay information in a nice looking way. And if you're coming from that side of, I'm an engineer and I solve problems in code well, I don't do InVision, and I don't, you might know how to do it basically, or you might know, I'd rather pick Bootstrap than, design from scratch. That's fine. Back-end engineers don't care so much about UI UX or should care about UX, not as much about UI, because the user experience will be affected by what an endpoint sends. But that's where I was like, yeah, I don't want to be a designer, and I'm not the greatest at UI and UX, so I'm going to choose a template. And as far as a static site goes, just keeping it simple. Where I work currently, we over-engineered a lot of things and have since reverted back, and we have the keep it simple principle, the KISS principle. And then lastly, get it out there. Kind of all this flows into getting it out there. So speed to getting it out there, especially if you're on the job search, you want that presence out there as quickly as possible to be found. I have a blog post that talks a little bit about this and just kind of summarizes that, and also has some resources. If you don't have a place to host your site, or if you're looking for some place to put WordPress, I have a shared hosting provider that I use that has never gone down to my knowledge, and so I recommend them because they're also cheap. And domain registrar that I use. So anything that I use, I reference. And I also, I reference them with affiliate links, but I also make it very clear, don't use the affiliate links if you want. I don't care. I care less about 7 cents that I make off of a domain you buy. I'm really just recommending it because I use it. So let's look at the questions real quick. So speak a little more about the testing aspects, tools to use, or templates for adding unit testing to projects. So with that, that's going to be language specific and project specific. However, in the realm of JavaScript, I think that the one that a lot of people use, or the one that I have the most exposure to, is Jest, J-E-S-T. Actually, I can probably stop sharing now because the next slide is time to code. So I'm going to stop sharing anyway, or stop. I guess I do want to keep sharing. I want to stop the slideshow. Sorry about that. If I can exit it. There we go. Cool. And I should have just, it's not just.io, just.js, I think. There we go. I lost my chat window again, but I will find it. So this is probably the one that we hear about the most these days, probably because it comes bundled in Create React App and such. So Jest is a great one for testing JavaScript. Has good documentation, in my opinion. It's pretty straightforward to follow. It can do integration and unit testing and most of the things that you would need. If you're looking for end-to-end testing, I think Cypress is the best. Honestly, I think Cypress is the best, mostly because it's so simple to get going. I haven't looked back at things like WebDriver.io also recently, but I remember the first time I tried end-to-end testing with WebDriver, like you have to install the driver and such, and it was difficult. Whereas Cypress, you just install a package and then you can get going. So ultimately, I wouldn't get too caught up on the tooling as opposed to just getting some stuff in there. So you can pick one. If Mocha, JS? No, I spelled that wrong. Mocha. Yeah. Mocha is also a very popular one. It's been around a lot longer. So there's probably anything you could ever think of has been done in Mocha, or a combination of Mocha, and you'll hear Mocha and Chai and such. So, but really picking one and going for it. They're all going to have somewhat of a learning curve, but just getting some of something in there. Yes, I will share a presentation for sure. So let's look at GitHub. And let me show real quick my profile. And this is the README thing that I figured out or learned how to do. I honestly just didn't know how to do it and searched. And the way you do that is you create a README, or you create a repository that's your username. So I have this repository that's the same as my username. And then there's a README. It says hi there, and that's what shows up on my profile. We see it right here. It's a special repository. It's readme.md will appear on your public profile. So that's how you do that. And you can put anything in that markdown file, which is cool. I've seen some, I was just looking at some, I was looking at hers, where's her GitHub? And I was like, I should finally do this. So you see, like, this is that README. So it's pretty cool. You can put all these types of things in there and really get a much more impactful GitHub profile for someone who lands on your page. So going back and updating most of your projects, I would say that's going to be situationally dependent. I have some projects on here that I work on, but haven't been updated in a while. I think this one's the most recent. And this is a package that I put out there because I was trying to figure out how to do like pages using cursor-based pagination in GraphQL using Apollo. And I won't dig into it, but essentially, like if you think of Facebook, when you scroll down Facebook or any infinite scroll, it just keeps adding. Like there aren't pages like next page like you have in tables. So that's how like GraphQL relay servers are designed to have. So there's just like infinite scroll. Here's a cursor. You tell me, give me the next 10 or whatever. And I figured, I just was like, there's no way to do this simply if I like have tables, and I had tables. So I found a blog post that said how to do it, and I turned it into a package. But I think you can go back and anything that's pinned, create good readmes for them. And then after that, if you have time and want, or if you're, you can also go in and decide, how much more you want to reflesh them out. Or if you're working on new things, start them and work on them from that full scope of requirements that you feel or that are good, or I think are good. So I would say updating is a good thing if it's going to be your public representation of yourself. And it also shows incremental improvement. You're continually making things better, which is what I think all of us and what jobs expect us to do. I'll have to look for some good posts from beginner developers. I'm going to write that down though, because if I don't, it'll disappear when Zoom closes. And if I don't do it now, I'll forget to write that down. You put your username as the repo name, and then it's readme.md in that repo. So it isn't your username as the markdown file. Yeah, we see. It's saying this is the repo, and it's the readme.md file in there. There it is, readme. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, let's hit it. Let's see if we can get something, a static site up, a portfolio site, basic one. And yeah, take questions as we go. So what template did you land on?
I landed on Strata.
Oh, that's what you posted in the, I saw that. Let's go with Strata. Okay, so Strata, free download. I think it just started. There it is. Let's open it up. Okay, so there's our base. Let me get to my terminal. I guess it's in downloads right now, so I need to load it. Strata. Copy. Okay, Strata. Okay, so we got our site, and going to get this started. So there's a package called serve. Can't remember exactly, but it starts a local HTTP server for you, so you can serve a static site. I'm sure, I know there's like a Python one built in as well, but I can't ever remember it. So what is it? Serve. I think I have to pass it one argument. Folder name. So I think it'll just do it for this folder. Okay, let's see if we see a website. Cool. So here is our Lorem Ipsum template site. So just like that, we already have all of this for free, and we're mostly going to do some edits here. And let's close some of this down. And I'll open up code editor. And I don't need much more than just our index. There we go. Cool. So same process can happen for, you know, whatchamacallit, something that you want to build yourself from scratch, but I suggest to start with this. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of do stuff, but I'm going to, you know, or let's see, where are we at? 325. Let's get this wired up and out there live, because I think editing some static HTML is not the most fun thing to watch or difficult thing to be shown, especially knowing that almost everyone here has been through some sort of boot camp or done some basic HTML, CSS. At this point, we're just editing. You know, instead of I am Strata, I am Seth. Serve doesn't auto refresh, but will refresh when we see I am Seth and such. So we would just change this however we wanted. We even have our links down here. We wouldn't have dribble, but and okay, question. How do you feel about having a picture of yourself on your portfolio? That's, I think, another one of those that's kind of personal preference. I like doing it. I don't like it on resumes. I have learned that on resumes, it is very standard to have pictures in other countries, but in the US, it's kind of an oddity. I know that there is the thought process of a picture on a resume makes it easier to remember who that person was or is, not was, is, which I can say is true. In my past career, I did do a lot of hiring, and you know, resumes kind of forget who is who without the picture. But I do think pictures can cause issues at times. I think I like them on sites because they're visual. I don't like them on resumes. So for me, I have a picture on mine. I guess I could show mine. This is mine currently. It's very straightforward. Has essentially nothing on it, but some links to GitHub, blogging, Twitter, and my email address, which I actually probably should update. But just a picture of me, and that's it. And I have a previous one, because I had put it on Surge, still sits out there. I'll throw this one in here too. This is what it used to be. Had a lot more info about me, experience. This was after I had this was my first role, and I had kept this updated and this has, you know, links to my projects from the boot camp. This was my initial take on my portfolio site. This is what is referenced in my blog post. I showed this once at Free Code Camp, and a lot of people asked, you know, well, how did you do that, and what did you use for your pictures, and you know, where did you get those icons from? So I wrote a blog post about it. So this is where I started. This is where I'm at now. Iteration, you know, continual improvement. Posting your site on something other than GitHub pages hold more weight. I don't think it holds really anyway where it's hosted. It's a learning process, I think, for a person to do that, because most people aren't going to get to a page like this and dig in, say, you know, okay, well, let's see the network tab. Where's this coming from? And refresh it. Obviously, this one, you know, is a subdomain of Surge, but if it wasn't, people aren't going to dig in this deep into things most times, especially for entry-level roles. Knowing that it's out there, you know, people aren't digging in as deep, like, okay, did this person build this themselves? Did they not? It's really just a peek into who they are, in my opinion. You know, I think there probably are some hiring managers who will dig in and be like, let's figure out where this is hosted, and I wonder what the back end is. And I know people who on their first sites, you know, they built a full Ruby on Rails back end serving a React front end, and they created their own blogging platform and, you know, CMS, and they do it all there from scratch. But it's more, I think, deploying things and hosting things in different places and building those things part of improving ourselves. So learning more than necessarily impressing an employer. And with that, that's kind of, I think, the thought process where I say, you know, do this, start with this, do this. And then if you want to serve this up from AWS, go for it. But do that after you get something like this out there on either GitHub pages or Netlify, or I guess, what's it called? Vercel now? It used to be Zeit. I think, yeah, Vercel. Oh, or Surge, which I had before I bought my custom domain name Surge. There's so many static site hosts out there. But let's get this, let's get this live. We put it on GitHub. I think that makes sense. It's straightforward. I haven't done it in a while. So let's see. Get a repo real quick. If I can, let's see. Public. I always still just copy and paste these, because I can't ever. Oh, I have to make this a Git repository. So git init, then do this. Oh, I was like branch -m. I don't know that I've done that one before. Oh, git branch, git commit. I have aliases, so it should push now. Wonder why they changed these. I don't ever remember this command being in there.
I think it's because if you're using an existing repository, are you using an existing repository? Or create a new one?
I just created a new one.
Yeah, I think one of the first steps. Those seem to work better for me whenever I would create a new repository.
Yeah. Okay, so we got something up here. Even includes a README we see from HTML5 up. And then, let's see, settings, source, master, save. Let's see. It's not there yet. It'll probably come through in a minute. But let me copy this. And I saw another question popped up, so I'll address that. Settings, all this stuff moved around. Put that there. At the root index. Oh, let's do one thing. I can't remember if it's true, but it might need a change to trigger a build. So I'll just change the readme. Go and push. Okay, we see this. It says active now. 1 minute ago. So let's see if it shows up. It's just like that. You can have portfolio site live and out there. And if you purchase a domain, you could attach that on here and have your static site up and running and taking an index.html in probably an hour, go through and turn these things into links to your projects. One thing that I did for my projects to build the links, like I have down here, was I just took screenshots. Like that's no cool preview thing from the link. I just literally went to the site and was like, capture a screenshot type of thing, and then pasted it into, I don't know. I was trying to use Paint, but Paint doesn't exist on Macs, into whatever, and saved it as a JPEG. Let's see. What kind of projects do you recommend that we add to our portfolio? It's just projects that our beginner developer could work through depending on language, etc. So yeah, that is quite the question. I don't know that, I think it really is going to be dependent. I always feel bad because I think every question is like, it could be any of these 17 answers in this career path for the most part, especially starting out, because like every manager and every hiring manager and every engineering team kind of values different things. So showing a baseline level of understanding and knowledge is, what I think all boot camps do, and projects also do, and showing that baseline understanding. But really, it's like kind of where do you want to specialize, or what's most valuable for a company. It's hard to reverse engineer that. So that's where, like, I've seen this question asked many times on Nash Dev, like, what project should I build? What would be impressive? What will help me get a job? And you get well, everything is essentially CRUD apps and forms. Like when you really, really think about the web, everything is just CRUD apps and forms. It's just how pretty and complicated are they? But so it's like To-Do essentially does all that, but a lot of the really complex problems companies are solving are so specific, it's like impossible to demonstrate that in the real world by yourself. So really thinking about what could potentially set you apart. With me, and when I was getting my career started, and as I continue on, I really lean into the fact that I'm a career changer. I spent a decade in hospitality. I spent a decade managing restaurants. So I have a keen insight and understanding and awareness of like business metrics. So like I was responsible for a P&L report, every quarter running a restaurant. Like that's something that most people have never necessarily had to do unless they've been in small business. And really leaning into the side of hospitality of like, I'm really aware of how things affect people and experiences. So like I know one thing that I did initially when I started where I was at is I sent like this long checklist of, I was like, the onboarding process could be way better if we did these like 25 things. And my CTO was like, this is amazing, and like implemented almost all of them. And had nothing to do with being a developer. It was just like, hey, it'd be cool if like when you got on, like within the first month of working at the company, we're a startup, we're less than 20 people, like you got to meet with each of the C-suites for like 30 minutes. There's only like 3 of them, you know, like meet with the founders of the company so they can tell you why the company exists, type of stuff. And then like, because it's one thing to hear it from like the CTO who came later, it's another thing to hear it from like the person who started the company. Like, this is why evidence care is what it is, and the problems we're trying to solve, and the passion that got it going. So I really lean into kind of the business side of my experience as a key differentiator, and then instead of the technical side as much. And, you know, the technical side is coming up because I have less experience in that, honestly. I do think there are good lists out there, but really find the thing that you really enjoy doing, because that's where you want to dig deep and really get good at, so that you hopefully will find an employer that's looking for that, so you can really do the thing that you like doing professionally. Yeah, I guess if that makes sense.
And I guess that leads me to a related question, Seth. So, and I know it just depends on a lot of factors, but would it be better to delve deeper into a fewer projects, you know, and just make them more complex, or to have more projects, you know, that maybe are shallower, you know, in terms of, you know, if that makes a question, yeah.
Yeah, it does. And I think that
makes sense.
Depth over width is better. I think that, especially in the JavaScript world, there are many people who know JavaScript because it's, you know, in the browser. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, I think people will always have some exposure to. But being a really good JavaScript developer is really difficult, because it is like, it's a lot deeper than it seems. Like knowing the different, outside of just like array and number and string and Boolean, like knowing about maps and sets and things like that, and the proper times to use them. Like those are pieces of JavaScript that a lot of people don't use, but are very useful if you, and a lot of people might not even know that they exist. I came across an algorithm challenge when I was in the boot camp. It was given to me by one of my instructors. He was like, go solve this as a good challenge, because I see that you have a area that needs improvement. And I got it working, but it had an actual like runtime performance requirement, and it wasn't running fast enough. And I was like, I don't know how to make this any faster. And he was like, go look at set. And I was like, what's set? I was like, I didn't even know set existed. And I was like, head exploded. And I created a set and did the same exact thing, just substituted a data structure, and it ran like 5 times faster. I was like, whoa. Obviously, the amount of time something takes isn't always a concern. I mean, it's always a concern, but typically you don't need to optimize that until it's affecting the end user. But that's where I think, especially in JavaScript, like knowing JavaScript deep is not something that a lot of people know. A lot of people know a good amount of JavaScript or know frameworks on top of JavaScript, but knowing vanilla JavaScript really, really well is a very, in my opinion, and in my experience thus far, as new as I am, a rarity. Algorithm data structure practice problems. So I would say FreeCodeCamp has good algorithm and data structure practice problems. I think I'm logged in. Yeah. Intermediate algorithm scripting. Some of these things are really hard. Basic algorithm scripting. Haven't been through all of them at this point. Been through a lot of them. And then if a great course is Udemy or how do I log it to this? Oh, sweet. Filled all my stuff in. And it worked. If you don't use a password manager, you should. Where am I? Oh, I don't have it. I have it in my wish list, I think. This one, this course. This course is amazing. One of my jobs purchased it. That's why I didn't purchase it, because I did it at a past job. Don't buy it for $95. Udemy is always running sales. Their sales, what do they call it? Their way of doing sales, I can't remember what to call it.
I always wait till they go on sale on Udemy, because they always got sales where like $13. I like, yep, I'm gonna go ahead and get it.
Yeah, their sales tactic is quantity over amount. I'm not a marketer. I can't remember what it's called, but like I signed up as an instructor, so I got access to like this, and like all the instructors who are most successful are like, don't worry about the price, just set a price. Udemy is going to sell it for like $10 and you're going to make money. But this one is actually, I learned about this from someone who works at Webflow, who lives here in Nashville area. And he said at the time, I don't know if it still holds true, but he recommended this course and said that all new engineers for Webflow go through this course within their first 3 months, I think, of starting. So I was like, oh, if you guys are putting your engineers through this course, then it's worth doing it. So this is a great one for algorithms, data structures. Freecodecamp.org, free, and has them. And then yeah, there's tons of other sites out there. Exorcism.
Coach Steele, he's a good teacher too.
Yeah. Exorcism is a great one because there's mentors. So you actually complete a project and it'll pass all the tests. And then a mentor will come through and code review it. Depending on which track you're in, it takes longer or shorter. If there's like 10,000 people submitting stuff and there's 100 mentors, it can take maybe a week. But I like doing, an exorcism task challenge and submitting it and then going about my day and, or week. And then when it comes back that, when it comes back that it's done, I'm like, okay, cool. I go in and I look at the review and there's things that I've had to like rework like 3 or 4 times. And then in that process, you learn because it's essentially code review where it's like, okay, you did it this way, but I want you to do it this way and not, not use map, write a for loop or something like that. So.
All right, cool.
Simplest portfolio project for a newbie. Honestly, just getting a portfolio up is a project in and of itself. So like doing something like this and getting that presence out there should be a very straightforward project to start. And then after that, it's really, you want to have some sort of interactivity. So something that people can, interact with and really fulfill the CRUD mandate. So create, read, update, delete. And that can just be, held in memory. So it doesn't have to be a database per se. You could do that all in JavaScript in the browser. Keep it pretty straightforward. But a static site, I would say, is the first project. I think it's also the first project in FreeCodeCamp. It was at one point. The first project was in HTML projects. Attribute page. So yep, a static site is the first project in FreeCodeCamp. So I would say that's probably the most straightforward web development project that there is, especially considering the low level of interactivity required. Okay. Stop this. Go back to. I lost it.
I have a question about the GitHub thing.
Yeah.
When you start a new repository and you put your name as the repository name, do you add the /readme.md after it, or you just name it your name?
Oh, you're saying like, here, I can do it right now because I didn't put anything in there. It just popped up that way. So let's see, your repositories. This one. Excuse me. Just get rid of this one. Okay, let's create one. So if we go to my profile, we see it's not there anymore, the little README. So slash, we see you get this secret. This thing popped up and I was like, oh, wow. And then just create it like that. Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen. It surprised me. And then from there, oh, I think if you add a README, it'll put that little hello thing in there. Now I'm gonna have to do more work. Let's delete it one more time. It'll put a default one in there. Because I know I didn't put it in there last time. Okay, one more time. Oh wait, okay. Add a README. Choose a license too. Sure. MIT. Create. There it is. Hi there. Now it should be on the profile. We see there's the hi there. And I typically would edit this just right here. Oh, it even has this hidden stuff in here. What? I really just set this up this week. I had known that it existed, but I never did it. So yeah, I'm learning.
Yeah, I just did it at
Oh,
work.
wow. It's like, here's some ideas to get you started. Well, to do this. Cool. I did want to get back to this. If I can, maybe. There it is. So I think we've been doing questions all this time. So I'm going to swap over to here as a reminder, because we're coming close to the end, and I like to be cognizant of the time, because I know people, especially on the holiday weekends, take time away from family and friends and plans. And